Video game pop quiz. What was the first 3D Kirby game? Nope, not that one. No, not that one either. Kind of, but not really. There it is, Super Mario Odyssey, the first major 3D Kirby game. Pretty bold of Nintendo to put out a Kirby game without Kirby in it. But hey, Mario sells units. You can't blame them. Okay, of course, Kirby and Forgotten Land is the first real 3D Kirby game. But think about how many similarities Super Mario Odyssey has to the Kirby formula. Taking over the powers of enemies and using them for yourself, while going level to level to eventually save the day. So since Mario Odyssey has used ability copying to such an extent, what place is there in the world for everyone's favorite pink puffball? If Mario is doing Kirby better than Kirby, what do Kirby games still have to offer? But even though Mario has a bigger budget and a more widespread appeal, there's still a lot that Kirby and the Forgotten Land does better than Super Mario Odyssey. Obviously, the structure of the games is way different, with Kirby being much more linear, while Odyssey is kind of a sandbox. And while there's pros and cons to each, being linear does allow for a tighter gameplay experience, where the developers are more closely able to control exactly how you have fun with the game. There's some nice cinematic moments, and while the different zones you move through look quite different, there's a good consistency throughout them. Despite the different settings, they all have a ruined, or forgotten, look to them, making it very believable that they're all part of the same world. Compare this to Mario Odyssey, where while there may be more variety between the levels, they're all so different, it's hard to believe that they're all within flying distance of each other on the same planet. Both Forgotten Land and Odyssey do a good job of making the levels feel like they're a part of a real place. They're way better in this regard than something like Mario 3D World, where every level is just a collection of floating blocks in the sky. Like, come on, no one could actually live here. But even though both games do this well, I'm gonna give the edge to Kirby here. In Mario Odyssey, it's nice that there's usually a residential area of each kingdom that makes sense as a place for the inhabitants to live in. But at the end of the day, each world is still on a large floating island, even if they try to give some context as to why it's an isolated space. But in Kirby, not only does each level look like a real place rather than just something floating in the void, but they each also have a purpose within the larger world of the game. There's cities, malls, factories, a subway, and even an amusement park with a bunch of different locations. They all make sense because they're all things that a world would actually have. I think the fact that the stages aren't just a collection of floating islands is due to Kirby's flying ability. Because he can just jump over any gap, bottomless pits are pointless as they don't pose any challenge. So instead, the designers had to come up with other obstacles for the little guy, instead of just being reliant on absent level geometry. It's a fantastic example of a game's level design being tailored to the main character's abilities. The stages also lead into each other very nicely. Sometimes you can see the start of the next level at the end of the one you're finishing. Even though it's a small thing, I love when games do this. It really shows that the designers were thinking about the game as a real place, not just a collection of obstacle courses. The fact that you can upgrade abilities also adds a ton to the game. Of course, the upgrades will make you more powerful, but I think the real addition they bring is the pursuit of getting them. First, you have to find the blueprint for a specific upgrade, and then buy it with coins and rare stones. The cost to upgrade is pretty high. You're not going to be able to improve everything without putting some effort in. This has you scouring every corner of each level for coins and taking on the treasure road challenges to get those sweet star stones. Even though having the upgrades is pretty nice, the real value they provide is serving as a carrot on a stick, giving you the desire to make the most out of the game, rather than just running to the end of every level as fast as possible. In Mario Odyssey, there's not much to serve this purpose. You can't upgrade the enemies you capture, and while the costumes you can buy are cool, the fact that they don't service the gameplay makes them a little less enticing. Even though it's all about the drive to get the thing, the passion to get it will be stronger if it's an advantage, not just an aesthetic difference. There's also the extra modes and minigames, something that's been a staple of the Kirby series for a long time. You can think of the levels of Forgotten Land like a pizza, and these extras are the toppings. Maybe not totally needed, but very much appreciated. It's nice to have the option to earn some extra coins through the cafe minigame, and the treasure road challenges really show off the strengths of each ability in a way that the regular levels can't. Mario Odyssey has some extras like this, but they're more of a one and done situation. There's not much reason to go back to them once you you have the moons that they reward. Where Forgotten Land and Odyssey are most similar is Kirby's mouthful mode, where he inhales large objects and takes on the properties of them. The way this works is almost exactly like capturing enemies in Mario Odyssey. You don't just take the thing's abilities, you become it entirely. This does a great job of breaking up the gameplay and adding a lot more variety. And so this is an area where Super Mario Odyssey really shines. A lot of the enemies you capture could easily take on the role of main character in their own game, but they're just another in a long line of bodies for Mario to take over. The gameplay is constantly changing up and never gets stale. There's a lot that Mario Odyssey does very well, and better than Kirby in a lot of ways. But Kirby in the Forgotten Land isn't just some lesser clone of it. It stands on its own as an example as to how the quality of the Kirby series hasn't wavered in the slightest. Copying abilities is always going to be a staple of the franchise, so it's kind of ironic how Kirby himself got copied by the biggest gaming icon there has ever been. But he's still here, and while the next Mario title will change up the gameplay yet again, Kirby will still be inhaling away.